In previous webinars where there's been a property focus, we've looked at retail, we've also looked at office tenancies, but this is the first time we've had a look in particular more at the industrial and commercial estate side. And it gives me great pleasure in that regard to welcome Rivan Munansa, who's the Director of Industrial and Logistics Services at Colliers. And in just a moment, Rivan will give his update by way of a brief presentation. But in the first instance, I'd like to pass the baton to Rivan for his presentation on this subject of business needs for property, global and consumer trends, and the shift in demand. Rivan.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris, for giving the introduction. Let me start the presentation about industrial. Yeah, as you can see, I mean, lately people are talking about what's going on with the market, and then some of the sectors are impacted, you know, for example, like office and everything. There is a contraction in demand and everything. And then retail probably is the sector that being impacted, you know, directly. But actually, in overall, industrial is actually, even though there is a distraction at the beginning, but I think in the future, still in a good, you know, good demand, and in the long term is still in good shape. So let's start with the agenda. I'm going to talk about what's going on with the market for industrial logistics, this is the first quarter, and this is actually right before the COVID happened in March. So let's start. Maybe I just gave an idea of what's going on with the mapping of the industrial estate in Greater Jakarta, which is, if you see in Serang, it's basically for the heavy industry and like chemicals, steel, smelters, you know, very heavy. And then if you go to Tangerang, it's more for the, you know, a lot of labor intensive type, you know, like garment, textile in Tangerang area. But lately we start hearing in the market that actually there is a shifting from them since the minimum wage is quite high. So we start hearing a lot of news that all of these labor intensive type of factory, they move to Central Java, which is over there the UMR is about 50% what's in Greater Jakarta. And then you go along to Jakarta, basically the government already, you know, encourage people in factory in Jakarta to go out from the Jakarta. And then on the south part is not much industrial estates. And then you go to Bekasi and Karawang, where all the basically a lot of automotive center in this area, together with the consumer goods and different type of industry. And then if you see the first quarter, I mean, the IS is representing the industrial estates. So you have several industrial estates, like in Serang, 3 industrial estates, Tangerang, 6 industrial estates. But I just would like to highlight, if you see from the yellow one is the existing stock, and the blue one is actually the remaining unsold land. So you can see actually there is, you know, even there is a potential supply in Serang and Tangerang area, but actually the remaining unsold land is almost run out of stock, you know. And then if you go to Bekasi and Karawang, you can see that, especially if you see the yellow one, actually the existing stock is really a lot, but again, the availability, the remaining unsold land is low, and the potential to be developed still there, but it will take some time to also supply to the market. As a result of that one, and then we all know that Bekasi, Karawang right now also the land price is already increased. So in the future, the way we look at it is there's a future expansion, which is right now government is already start constructing the Patimban port, and that will be helping the logistics from Bekasi and Karawang, in which they don't have to go to Jakarta, but they can go through the Subang area and go to Patimban port. But this is really 100% rely on the infrastructure that will be completed from Patimban to the Cipali toll road. As you can see, in terms of the performance from 2006 to 2019, actually we have the picking up in 2010 to around 2013 and 2014. And then after that is going a bit down and flat. And actually in 2019, it's about to picking up. But then in beginning of the 2020, there is a, this COVID-19 happened. So as you can see, I mean, 56 hectare only sold in first quarter 2020, which is only representing 16% of the total sales compared to last year. But I'm not really, negative on this one, because what's going on is a lot of companies are adjusted during the COVID period for the SOP, like working from home, and then all the how they shift, they adjust with the situation. So it's actually that's preventing the sales, booked in second quarter 2020. And then as you can see, the first quarter, we still see automotive like 40%, but of course this is not representing the whole market because the demand at that time is low. But you can see also food is actually growing, and I would say consumer goods is still in a good shape. In terms of the rental, you can see as this is back to back with the performance, that there is a big jump from 2010 to around 2014, and then become flat, during this period until 2017, and then going down a bit, and then is about to go back again, but then because of this COVID, then it becomes flat again. Now we move to the other sector, which is logistics. That's the industrial or the manufacturing performance. If you can see the logistics, this is the area of the logistics, which is, if you see the blue one, is actually the high demand for logistic requirement, in which actually you have a lot of different type of requirement for logistics. If you are doing more on the import, then you probably will be located in Marunda or Cakung area, because that's very close to the seaport in Tanjung Priok. But on the other hand, if you go and supply the manufacturer, then you probably more located in the Bekasi and Karawang area, because that serves the manufacturers. And then the other one is the potential in the market is like e-commerce, and there is still a very big room to increase in the future, as comparable if you see in China. Then it's actually the high demand of area for e-commerce, usually at the south or in the Bekasi area. But I think everywhere closer to the city will be the area, the target area for e-commerce. Of course, the challenge is the land price is already expensive compared to in the industrial area such as Cikarang and Karawang. Okay, if you can see the warehouse supply is actually mostly are located in Bekasi, and Bekasi itself consists of Marunda, which is really close to a seaport, Bekasi city as well, and then Cibitung, Cikarang. This is why Bekasi is become the high supply for warehouse, is because Bekasi, like Cibitung area is, they can serve both, you know, they can serve the logistics, they can serve the closer for the import from the seaport, and they also can serve the manufacturer, which is located in Cikarang and Karawang. And then if you can see that actually the occupancy rate is pretty healthy from 2016 to 2020, pretty much, you know, until 2019 is actually 90%. And then why in 2020 drop is because just recently there's a big developer completed a big parcel of you know, warehouse, and that entering to the supply in the market. But on the other hand, there is a bit slow in regards to the this COVID-19 happen. But in overall, we still be very positive that actually the logistics is pretty healthy. Okay, so what's happened after the you know, with this first quarter, you know, for the industrial and logistics? This is based on our observation as a consultant, you know. The first one that really hit the most is automotive, you know, because I think there's a big drop, especially in May. I heard some news, they mentioned maybe drop even like 90%. And of course, the other one, you know, like the supplier to the automotive, you know, like steel or the spare parts, also, you know, affected by that. You know. But on the other hand, we heard, you know, like e-commerce is actually growing. They suddenly need space to occupy, you know, and it's quite a significant size. You know, they're talking about, you know, 18,000 square meter, maybe expandable to 20,000 square meter. You know, so it's quite significant. And then during the pandemic, even the e-commerce, I mean, in terms of the negotiation, they are not really, they don't really have get impact, you know. They just keep on going on the negotiation and basically finalizing, you know, everything. So I see there's a really potential in the e-commerce, and then data center as well. A lot of, I think, parties start to try to survey the area and everything. Even though, I mean, the criteria is quite difficult, you know. You should have a, you know, constant power supply, and then there should be flood free and everything, you know. So I think, but as a backbone of the e-commerce business, I mean, data center is something that really potential, you know, for that to be grow, you know. And then the other one is consumer goods. Surprisingly, I don't see any impact on consumer goods. In fact, they still have planning to expand, and their sales also not really you know, affected much. Is probably only temporary, you know. And then the last one is actually the potential growth, you know. This is based on what we heard in the market, that, you know, in China there is an interest that all factories, a lot of factories, you know, are thinking of moving out from China, you know. And one of them is we heard about pharmaceutical, you know. And the other one as well, I see like personal healthcare. I think this is also will be increased. And the last one is actually high tech, I think, because we are talking now, government always talking about, you know, 4.0, you know, industry 4.0, in which currently probably Indonesia only at the level of 2.0, you know. So I think with this kind of, you know, affected by this pandemic, you know, I think it's more and more factories is start thinking of, you know, do more on automation, and then to maximize their manufacture, you know. So that's, I think, in general. So in summary, actually, if you're asking about the industrial, yes, there is an impact at the beginning, but it seems like in the long run, still in a good shape. And there is some area, some sectors that really hit, but most of it, I think, still pretty healthy, and then the trend is still, going up. So hopefully the diagram can catch up, with the last year. I think that's pretty much from me. Thank you very much.
Rivan, I'd like to go back, if I may, to some of the observations that you have made. You referred to the fact that the more heavy manufacturing has retreated in the COVID situation, automotive particularly hit. Does your organization, Colliers, do you have any sense of how long it may take and when this more heavy manufacturing might actually bounce back?
Okay, thank you, Chris. I think it depends on, because I think every people are now adjusted to the to the new normal life, in which right now I think people are still really busy with the procedure and everything, but I think once we got adapted with the situation, then I think slowly I think the demand will go back, because right now is the reason why people don't buy the car, because they cannot go everywhere, but I think once government open, and then we still can go out, even though following the procedure, then I think slowly then the demand will be back, but for sure it's not going to be like instantly happen. That's in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Rivan. And referring to that same slide, you put in the middle line, I recall, demand for IT and tech-related things starting to come up. I'd like to invite Fatmi Fakhri, to ask their question, because this particular question relates to Indonesia's readiness to embrace high tech. So Fakhri Dwi Rama, if you'd like to take yourself off mute, if you'd like to also release your video camera, please, this is your chance to ask the question directly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So, hello everyone. So, yeah, the question for me, because I'm a consultant in Surabaya Jurong, and then we have several projects in industrial estates, and then some of our clients also talking about the high-tech industrial, because they want to, yeah, since now the government talking about industrial 4.0. So, is there any insight? Yeah. Yes, now several developers start to think about this high-tech industrial, to bring in high-tech industrial. But then the question from my side is how ready we, at least the government, to support this high-tech industrial, especially for these developers. Because yeah, high-tech industrial is involving with the, if I'm not mistaken, last time the only providers that has this license for IoT, it's only Indosat and Telkomsel, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. But then I'm not sure whether they are ready for the infrastructure.
Okay, so this is referring specifically to IoT, 5G, and so on. Rivan, any thoughts in response to that, please?
Yeah, actually, the 4.0 is already being discussed with the government and everything. always we heard about industry 4.0, but unfortunately right now, as I mentioned in my presentation, is now we are only 2.0, you know. So meaning that there are still a lot of things to catch up, you know, in terms of the infrastructure. Even though, I mean, that's something that's a good idea, but I think, in my opinion, will take some time to achieve the in terms of the infrastructure to 5G and everything. Yeah, honestly, you know.
Okay, so not ready yet, work in progress, still an awful lot to do.
Yeah.
So going back to this issue of China, I mean, 2 or 3 years ago, everybody thought that Indonesia would compete for the business of those companies that were looking to diversify their expansion. In the end, what we know is that actually Indonesia performed very poorly in acquiring those businesses, and in most cases lost out to Vietnam. How ready is Indonesia now? And I'd really like to invite both of you to comment on that. But yourself, Rivan, first. How ready is Indonesia to really compete with the likes of Vietnam in terms of manufacturing and industrial capability?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, if you compare with Vietnam, I mean, in my opinion, I mean, Indonesia is more attractive because the market is much bigger than Vietnam, you know. And last time, I think there's concern as well for companies or factories to be set up in Vietnam because the political situation, you know, in Vietnam, you know, because as a communist country, you know. But you know, I think Vietnam is successfully give an incentive to the to investors, you know, and most of the type of industry that I understand is related to labor intensive, you know. So it's like shoes manufacturing or garment, you know, textile, you know, and in which it is happened is because in China, slowly the minimum wage also increasing, you know, because the middle class increase, you know. So then I think Vietnam give you know, enough incentive for the first wave that come from China. Instead of their manufacture in China, they just shifting to Vietnam. While in Indonesia, as you know, that is case by case, and there is no really, you know, tax holiday being proposed, you know, to the investors. But for the second times, when I heard about this, I mean, we all heard about the rumors that will be go from China going to Brebes and everything, you know, is already floating in the newspaper, you know. I think for the second one, I mean, the second wave, I think government really doesn't want to lose, you know, against Vietnam. You know. I believe the government will do everything they can, you know, to catch the investor here, because in terms of the infrastructure, you know, in terms of the with what happened right now, the massive infrastructure, you know, the toll road, the connectivity, even because of this connectivity and also because of this COVID, you know, it's actually the logistic cost is going down, you know, currently, because less traffic and then connectivity is good, you know. So I believe, and I start also hearing, you know, like for example, like in special economic zone, you know, there will be, you know, like a tax-free, possible tax-free, you know, and for a certain, you know, industry, there will be a tax holiday for 5 years, and then you got like 50% on the 6th and 7th year, you know. So I think government is really seriously, you know, thinking of, you know, of getting these investors, you know. And I think if that happen, I think we actually should be more attractive compared to other countries, you know, like Vietnam. I think that's my opinion.
I'd like us to stay on this theme of examining and contrasting with Vietnam and how successful it has been and its readiness. I think everybody would agree there have been significant improvements from Indonesia with regard to the bureaucracy, regulations, and so on. Still a long way to go, but there's no better way than to actually listen to somebody else's recent experience in relation to actually relocating or setting up in Vietnam. Frank Finlow joins us, and Frank, if you'd like to unmute yourself, and if you feel inclined, put your camera on as well. Frank Finlow is somebody that has been involved directly with setting something up in Vietnam. Frank.
Yes, Chris, thanks for that. Just to clarify, it was not a project I was taking a lead role to set up. It was an existing operation that was being expanded to include a retail portion in an existing location. But my first venture in Vietnam was 15 odd years ago, and to say that, going back to the same location, this is in Hanoi, or a bit north of Hanoi, a place called Bac Ninh. They have developed two brand new real estate, industrial estates, and split 60% for manufacturing, 40% for warehousing. And the second phase of Bac Ninh 2 was almost fully booked. So clearly they have taken a very aggressive stance to bring operations in, and then doing a reasonably, well, I say a pretty good job. They're struggling with the same issues that's happening in Indonesia, and that's about increasing minimum wage, skill shortage of people. But for the heavy person demand and everything else, they seem to be doing a really good job. But having spent a bit of time in Indonesia also, I can say that the completion of the latest infrastructure projects will definitely put Indonesia back on track to compete with Vietnam. And my experience is both workforce-wise, certainly the Indonesian workforce, I don't know how to say this politically correctly, but the Indonesian workforce is more adaptable to change. And in northern Vietnam, the folks there are not quite as progressive as in Ho Chi Minh City either. But I just sense that this development that's ongoing, even as we speak, to brand new estates in East Java, outside of Surabaya, Lamongan and places like that. If they get a rail spur which designed to take pressure from Surabaya port, I think the opportunity is immense.
Okay, thank you very much, Frank. Benny, Rivan, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I think I just want to add on the Frank comments. I do agree, you know, like in Surabaya itself, also there is a big development, you know, in terms of the industrial estates, as well as the infrastructure, you know, like Lamongan, Gresik, you know, and Surabaya. So I think what's happened is not only in Greater Jakarta, which is maybe 10 years ago, we are only talking about Cikarang, Bekasi, you know, that's the only area that we are talking about, you know. But now I think for East Indonesia, there is also a massive development in industrial estates and the infrastructure also in Surabaya area, you know. So that's really positive, I think. And then with the connectivity right now, there is you know, Cipali can be connected directly with Surabaya. I mean, that's really helping the logistic cost to go down, you know, instead of very high cost, you know, like before. I think that's my according to me.
So we're hearing some positive things, aren't we? Cost competitiveness is there. Frank intimated that the Indonesian workforce is more versatile, so that's competitive advantage as well. Infrastructure's on its way. Bureaucratic issues are getting easier, but I think on bureaucratic and infrastructure, still a lot of work in progress needs to be done. So all of that's very positive, and we also know that that there are, through the special economic zones, different sorts of tax incentives as well that are going to help Indonesia compete. I think the big question is going to be, are we able to compete properly almost now, because the opportunity is now. But I think that's one that we can discuss in future webinars. What I would like to ask Rivan, you showed from 2016 to 2020 a steady increase in demand for industrial land. But the first part of my question is, who is the demand coming from? Is it international demand or is it domestic demand?
During that period is actually from domestic and outside, but the big jump is 2010 to 2014 is 100% outside and really driven by the automotive, you know. So once the automotive came in, a lot of the vendors and supplier came in as well. So there's a massive, you know, going into the market, you know. And then after that is the existing one, and then they need to expand, you know.
Right.
Plus also there's a new investor.
So this new demand that there is from IT and technology related, is that also likely to have the same knock-on impact with supply chain, or was that particular impact quite unique to heavier, more traditional manufacturing like automotive, as you discussed?
You mean the data center?
Yeah, likes of data centers, yeah.
Yeah, I think they are, each of them are having their own market, yeah. For manufacturing, consumer goods, they keep on going, and then supporting by the logistics, which is helping with the 3PL and everything. The data center, I think, is in parallel with the e-commerce, you know, because that's basically the backbone of the e-commerce, you know. So what's happened here is not only the consumer goods, I think consumer goods index going up, you know, but on the other hand, even though it's new, the e-commerce also is quite, you know, increased rapidly. And then if you see from China, the e-commerce is actually can be suddenly double, you know. So I see, you know, a lot of party, I mean, they prepare, if it's for e-commerce, then maybe they prepare like twice as what they need. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Then there's a question coming from Lucas asking about whether you've seen much increase in demand relating to cold chain and fresh produce related activity. Rivan. On mute. Yeah.
Okay. You mean cold chains, meaning cold storage or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, yes, even though the market is right now is not big, but the one that I heard in the market is actually the market for cold storage is quite healthy. You know. The only thing is the investment is quite high, because when you buy the property, then the type of building is not standard as like a warehouse, in which when it is empty, you can just right away switch to other tenant. You know. So in terms of the cold chains or this one is actually, to me, is something that also potentially growing, you know, because if the food is growing, the cold chains also potentially will be growing as well.
Yeah. Okay. Just this move from Tangerang to Central Java, just how, I mean, we've all moved house and things like that, or even moved office. How easy is it for a factory to move?
You're asking me?
Yes, Rivan, sorry.
Yeah. Definitely, I think Central Java, if you're talking about labor intensive, for sure they're going to go there because it's almost like 50% of what is in Greater Jakarta. So the labor intensive like garment or textile, shoes manufacturing, they cannot compete with these, automotive, because the automotive is probably the highest in the list of the minimum wage. So definitely I start seeing, like almost every time when people actually shifting their factories, from Tangerang, from Greater Jakarta, and then they right away move to Central Java. The only challenge is the infrastructure, because if you compare the infrastructure with Greater Jakarta, I mean, Central Java basically is still way behind, And then the second one as well, sometimes they also need, the skillful, labor, in which in Jakarta is already, much better compared to the productivity compared to the Central Java labor. But definitely I see, there is a trend and shifting right away from Greater Jakarta going to Central Java.
Okay, and I'd like to stay with you, Rivan. Obviously, we are still in the midst of this global pandemic, COVID. At the heart of combating it has been mandating businesses, manufacturing, and so on to practices and standards relating to distancing and so on. As a services organization, to what extent are you providing advice to your clients? Also, is it going to make a difference going forward in terms of need for more space? And just how will that work for an organization? Because the space that's needed is to a large degree unproductive, potentially redundant. A number of questions there, really, Rivan, related to the phase that we're in now and the changes that are being forced upon business and manufacturing.
I think it's only talking about adjustment, because everybody should adjust, after this COVID-19. So in terms of the procedure of the factory, that definitely, they have no choice. Basically, for the factory, they have to follow the procedure, the SOP. And that's why I explained that the 4.0 become the options, because then if you have to make a distance and everything, then that's actually a trigger for a factory to start, implementing the automation and everything, so that with that situation they can adapt, with the social distancing and everything, but they still can keep the output or the product of their manufacturing keep on going, So I think that's the tip from mine is basically looking for other, alternative in which you should maximize your existing operation to keep up with the same level, even though you have to practicing all the SOP.
So just to be clear, Rivan, your organization, Colliers, are able to work with your clients to try and help them and guide them in this regard? Yes.
I mean, we can help with the finding the properties or with all the requirements, the detailed requirements. I mean, we are capable and we have the experience of doing that.
I'd like to invite a few closing remarks from yourself based on the discussion that we've had today.
Okay. For me, even though maybe my slogan will be don't be too negative about what's going on, because there is hope at the end of the road. You know. That's my final statement. Thank you.
All right. So with that, thank you both very much. Rivan representing Colliers, Benny representing Cikarang Dryport, and our discussion around the industrial land, industrial estates. I think this is a discussion that we can continue, particularly in the context of Indonesia and its readiness to compete, to take some of that business that inevitably will be leaving China and looking to move to somewhere in Southeast Asia. With all of that, thanks to my team. Thanks again, Rivan, Colliers, Benny, Cikarang Dryport, to you for giving up your time, and keep an eye on these other webinars. And when the recording of this comes out, please post it far and wide. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.